It was basically a textbook case of bribery and abuse of power, all caught on video and photos, which is why the FBI charged that sheriff with conspiracy, fraud, and multiple counts of criminal bribery. It's also why he was convicted of those crimes and sentenced to 10 years in federal prison. 10 years. But today, Culpeper County's corrupt, bribe-taking sheriff, that is a tongue twister, is a free man. All thanks to Donald Trump. Because the president just issued a full and unconditional pardon to former Culpeper County Sheriff Scott Jenkins. Why? Well, it might have something to do with the fact that Scott Jenkins is part of the MAGA faithful and definitely has ties to Trump world. I mean, he's also a fellow at the far-right Claremont Institute, a conservative think tank that employs several former Trump officials. So he definitely has ties to them. Now, after his pardon was announced, Trump's pardon attorney put an even finer point on it, tweeting, "No MAGA left behind." Subtlety has never really been these guys' strong suit, has it? Now, Trump pardoning random corrupt MAGA officials, which is what this is a case of, is a scandal unto itself. And Jenkins is far from the only example. But it's especially galling when you consider the people Trump actually does want to prosecute. I mean, it was just last week when Trump called for investigations into several celebrities, Bruce Springsteen, Beyonce, Oprah, claiming that their endorsements of Kamala Harris during the 2024 election somehow constituted illegal campaign contributions. Now, all of those claims appeared to be completely baseless, and forgive me for this one, ludicrously Trumpy. But if Donald Trump is going to claim he really, really cares about illegal campaign contributions, well, then maybe he shouldn't have just pardoned a corrupt sheriff who took illegal campaign bribes to give unqualified people positions of power. Maybe not. And it's not just this one case. I mean, on almost every issue Trump claims to care about, there's a pardon that proves he doesn't really care at all. For instance, Trump and his presidential BFF, you know who I'm talking about, have spent the last several months claiming they are really concerned about so-called waste and fraud in America's entitlement programs. We've covered here on this show how Trump and Musk's changes to Social Security have made it significantly harder for seniors to get help with their benefits, all in the name of rooting out fraud. We've also covered how Trump's big ugly bill in Congress would make dramatic cuts to Medicaid and Medicare, also in the name, according to them, of course, of rooting out fraud. I mean, just listen to the way they talk about this basically any time they are asked about their highly unpopular cuts to these programs.
We have not cut Medicaid. What we're doing, Margaret, is working on fraud, waste, and abuse.
We're also identifying shocking levels of incompetence and probable fraud in the Social Security program.
Social Security is the biggest Ponzi scheme of all time.
Let's say Social Security didn't send out their checks. My mother-in-law, who's 94, she wouldn't call and complain. A fraudster always makes the loudest noise, screaming, yelling, and complaining.
I mean, that clip. We're not making any cuts is basically their message. It's all about finding fraud in their definition. And anyone who complains about it must be a fraudster themselves. Now, given their intense concern surrounding this issue, a spoken concern, I should say, you would think the Trump administration would be very sensitive about associating itself with anyone even remotely connected to actual entitlement fraud, right? No, of course not. Because last month, Donald Trump pardoned this guy, Paul Walzak. And what was Paul Walzak convicted for? What was his crime? Here it is from the New York Times. Between 2016 and 2019, Walzak withheld more than $10 million from the paychecks of his employees under the pretext of using it for their Social Security, Medicare, and federal income taxes. Instead, he used some of the money to buy a $2 million yacht and to pay for travel and purchases at high-end retailers, including Bergdorf Goodman and Cartier. In other words, this guy took money from the paychecks of his employees that was supposed to be paid into their Medicare and Social Security savings. It was their money. And instead, he literally bought a yacht and shopped at Bergdorf. And today, the New York Times has new details about how the pardon for that fraudster came to be. The Times reports that Walzak submitted a pardon application to President Trump around Inauguration Day. Then his mother, and here's the key part, was invited to a $1 million person fundraiser dinner last month that promised face-to-face access to Mr. Trump at his private Mar-a-Lago club in Palm Beach, Florida. Less than 3 weeks after she attended the dinner, Mr. Trump signed a full and unconditional pardon, sparing Walczak from having to pay nearly $4.4 million in restitution and from reporting to prison for an 18-month prison sentence. So this guy is going to prison in part for his Social Security and Medicare tax fraud. Then his mom goes to a $1 million per plate Mar-a-Lago fundraiser. And 3 weeks later, poof, a pardon from Trump magically appears. Imagine that, how that works. I mean, it certainly seems like Donald Trump is totally okay with defrauding Social Security and Medicare, as long as the people doing it are paying him. And all of this is to say nothing about all of the fraudsters Trump pardoned in his first term. According to CBS News, at least 13 of the fraudsters Trump gave pardons or commutations to were convicted in cases involving more than $1.6 billion of fraudulent claims filed with Medicare and Medicaid. So 13 people who committed more than $1 billion worth of Medicare and Medicaid fraud were all pardoned by Donald Trump in his first term. And it's not just fraud. It's the same pattern with nearly every type of crime. Trump's Justice Department is prosecuting a Democratic congresswoman for this encounter, claiming she assaulted a police officer. But Trump pardoned nearly 170 people who pled guilty to or were convicted of assaulting police officers on January 6th. Trump claims to back American law enforcement, but just last month, he pardoned a MAGA politician who was convicted after she took money that was raised to honor a slain police officer and literally used it to pay for plastic surgery and for her daughter's wedding. You can't make up how gross it is sometimes. Trump also used the threat of international drug trafficking to justify everything from his draconian immigration policies to his disastrous tariffs. But that didn't stop Trump from pardoning a notorious online drug trafficker who the FBI says is responsible for the overdose deaths of at least 6 people. All because that notorious online drug trafficker had become a cause célèbre in parts of the conservative movement. That's why. Look, of all the powers Trump has, the pardon power, in my view, has always had one of the greatest potentials for abuse. Trump is using pardon power in a way that no one else has really done before him, rewarding his friends, legitimizing conduct he himself wants to engage in, and likely ignoring many of the people who may legitimately need a presidential pardon or commutation. It's pretty clear that Trump intends to keep expanding his use of the pardon power. I mean, earlier this month, he chose Ed Martin as his official pardon attorney. You remember this guy, I'm sure. We've talked about him a lot. He's a former advocate for January 6th defendants. He was actually in Washington on January 6th tweeting from the protests. Trump then decided to try and make Ed Martin the U.S. attorney for Washington, D.C., where Ed Martin immediately started threatening Democratic lawmakers with baseless investigations. Eventually, Trump had to take him out of that job after Martin's ties to a notorious right-wing Hitler impersonator came to light. But Trump didn't get rid of Ed Martin entirely. He just moved him over to the pardon office, where he could continue to help Trump abuse his power. Congratulations, Ed. You're no longer in charge of punishing our enemies. Your new job is to reward all of our friends.